Your presence. I felt usually you're playing towards me, and I felt a little bit weird because you were playing this way.
Except for the last note.
It's okay, it came out right. Didn't come out like you wanted. A few things real quick before our clinician comes in. Good job on stage. I want you guys to know that, like you guys were, there were a few weird things that always happen. You know, you get on stage and something happens. Colby's vibe pedal fell off. And he had to fix it, you know, in real time. And Garrett's amp mysteriously went from like a really good volume to about half volume. I don't know if you guys noticed that in Crescent City, but you could not hear him. Boom, 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 boom. And I just had to walk over there and just kind of lean over and go, Garrett, louder. And he was like, this and this wasn't really producing much more. And so, you know, he just had to kind of like play louder on him. So everybody did a good job. Had your head on straight. Now you're not in the right places, and I'd like you to be in the right place when the clinician gets in, so that we're not doing things. We'll see how the recording's done out. Sound good? Yeah. Anything you guys want to say real quick before the clinician gets in? Anything that was awesome? Or like,
That was awesome.
Arkansas was good.
I cracked like 3 notes, which is good for me.
just 3 notes?
Only 3.
Good job. Proud of yourself. Awesome. Well, we'll see who is our clinician.
We could Paul Baker. What's the one?
Yep, Paul Baker.
William Owens?
No, he's not here.
William Owens?
Is Paul Baker here?
No, he's not. There's 5.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, a mental note, while we're waiting, mental note, Tuesday, right, we have the Lions Club thing.
Oh, yeah.
Tuesday, it was like 7 o'clock. Okay, and so, we'll rehearse, and then we'll, after school, we'll just move our stuff over there.
I'm gonna have white hair.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. And so, and we'll, it shouldn't take long, you know, we'll play straight through our blue tunes and then be done. Yep.
Is that gonna be all black or
All black. All black. At $250 a plate, we'll dress up all black one.
I think we should ban Polo and jeans.
No.
Oh, ban Polo and jorts.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, he's, you know, we knew that coming into it, that there's gonna be no violence here, and that's fine. So, I'll send out an email probably tomorrow, just to you guys on that. Just, you know, but, you know, you guys are here now, you guys do rehearse, move the stuff over. Depending, we may need a rehearsal, we may not need a rehearsal, we may just move the stuff over during seven periods. Yeah, we can play these for, I don't think there's anything else in our thing right now that we play for. Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
John Fox.
So, you're all yours. Go
Oh,
forward.
man, I was telling the guys upstairs, I might just, come in and ask you, I'll just play it again, if I can listen to it. Can you just do that?
Sure. Whatever you want, we'll rock it.
No, y'all sounded great. Y'all sounded very, very good. I really, really enjoyed that. I don't know what I'm gonna have to offer you, but I'll ask you to play and I'll stop you in some things, as they come to mind. I will say this, I'm not a I'm sorry, my name is John Fox. How are you? Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Good. I teach in the Music Industry Careers Program up at MCC in Waco. Guitar is my instrument.
I'm playing a guitar, yeah.
I've done like 4 or 5 of these throughout the last 2 days. I had 1 guitar.
Really?
And it was one of the sax players who doubled on guitar for 1 tune.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
I keep missing all the guitar players. I'm what's up with that. I'm not a sax player, but there's a ton of them up there.
Yeah.
All weekend, all I've heard about all weekend is reeds and mouthpieces. Making me crazy. But they did mention a couple things for you,
Okay.
and I will just throw those out to you again. I'm not a sax player. I don't know that much about saxophone other than what I hear. The curved mouthpiece in particular
Yeah.
forces your bell down.
Yeah.
So, as a lead instrument, keep that in mind. It's just something that you have to keep in mind. Generally, we think of section playing, this goes for all the sections, right? For proper apparent balance out here, right? The lower end of the section should be a little bit louder than the top end of the section. So as you go from bottom to top, you ever heard that, the dynamic pyramid, right? So the lower end of the section has to be a little bit louder, and then as you go up, it gets softer and softer and softer, just slightly, right? I mean, these are subtle things for sure, but to get that apparent balance. So playing that particular instrument as part of the section, and it was particularly apparent during the soli. Nice job, by the way, that was awesome. But it is a little bit apparent that you have to kind of bend up, right? You have to get that bell up a little bit more than you would normally have to do. So just keep that in mind as you play that particular mouth or neck for that instrument. Okay? I thought you guys did something I usually have to talk about a lot, and it's near and dear to my heart, is shaping notes, right? Long notes in particular. Our ensemble will push through some of the notes, right? I thought you guys did a really, really nice job of that for the most part. Personally, I'd still like to hear more dynamics, right? And so so here's something that comes to mind. Can we start the middle tune? The ballad. With our soloist. Hey, you can hang out there. You can hang out there. Not familiar with this piece at all.
Rick said to us.
Oh, yeah, it's just the.
Anyway, we kind of played a few different ballads. We had, anything Charlie had? Afternoon was in our playing that, and we had Blue Green, kind of a less super rock version of it.
Okay.
And, I just wasn't sold on any of them. Listening and I just happened to be, I was looking for some jazz 2 charts for Rick's, huge library. And I was like, new. And it says new, but it's really on his library, it says new, but it's not new at all. It was done like 10 years ago.
Really?
It just still says new on the website.
Yeah.
I hit play and I was like,
My
done.
wife's over is like that as well.
Yeah, and I was like, done, I'm buying that.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a beautiful piece.
so
It's a
I met him
beautiful piece.
at his campus and just said, hey, here's your money.
Here it
And
is.
then I sat
Give me
and
one.
listened to the jazz band for about an hour. And I was
Nice.
like,
Nice. So we talk about dynamics, right? Again, anything I'm gonna say to you today is gonna be picking nits for the most part. I thought you all sounded really, really good. And you do a really nice job of this overall. But this tune in particular, when I heard it from upstairs, I thought the beginning could have really started from almost nothing. And it doesn't right now, right? Right now, the band kind of comes in pretty strong right from the top. But I would love to hear the saxes and bones kind of come in from nothing and build over those first 4 bars up to the trumpet entrance, right? Can we try that?
yeah, you want me to?
Yeah.
And 1, 2, 3.
So obviously the big thing here is the flute entrance, right? So as we get to the top of that trumpet, as they come in, they've got like about 5 measures, right? So really and think about where the shape of the line is. Really the trumpet entrance is really the top of the whole figure, right? So if you can build into that 4th measure, right, and think of that as the peak, right? Because that's the top of the trumpet line, or that's going to be the top of the ensemble line. So think of that as the peak part of that whole thing, and then from there, bring it back down to nothing, right? 'Cause I don't know if that's counter to.
No, it was great because when we started doing this, we started playing like so soft that the horn, you know, you hard.
Yeah, it is, yeah, I totally get that.
You know, if you're getting those.
Yeah.
Just play with a good sound, so that's.
Sure, and that's where you wanna start, absolutely, right? And to the extent that you're able, then we can start to broaden those, right? I'm a big believer that, that dynamics in particular need to be kind of ridiculous. I'm serious, like when you're playing something to the point that you think the dynamics are like comical, that's when the audience is gonna hear them perfectly, right? When you think dynamic should be like this, and to the audience they will come across as a nice kind of soft loud balance. It's the way it'll be perceived out here. So I'm a big believer in that. I see all of these, you know, we got la da da da, and that might be cool, and that might be what you want eventually. But can we try this to think of just one big crescendo, decrescendo? So again, as the trumpets come in, that should be the loudest part of the phrase, and then just kind of fall back down to the flute language. Can we try that? See if that sounds good.
So we're gonna start like triple piano.
Yeah.
Really try to master your tone right at the start of this thing.
As soft as you can create a good solid tone. Right, obviously the tone has to be there.
1, 2, 7.
So that I think overall that's really nice. I'd like to hear you get back down to where you started for the most part. The saxes, I think every time you have those 16th notes, you can push those just a little bit. So don't think of those as being don't think of those as being part of the overall crescendo decrescendo, but utilize that figure as its own kind of push and then bring it back and then push, right? Because it's an ascending line each time, right? Those 16th notes. So you wanna kind of push into those and then let it fall back down into the overall dynamic, and then push it a little bit and fall back down into that overall dynamic. Does that make sense? Right? So again, I think that the beginning was beautiful. Can we try and take the end of those 8 measures and think of that being the same place? Back down to that, again, it's as soft as you can create nice tone. Do it one more time. Specifically, but
we haven't, because it says in there, I believe, it says, let's say piano fills, somewhere in there, I believe, piano fills.
So maybe you
my mind,
mentioned it,
yeah.
no, maybe you mentioned it. But I think it's a good point, right? Just as an overall concept, especially with no guitarist or vibraphone or anything like that, I think you can go ahead and fill some of those spaces, and again, upstairs, I think we all would have liked to have heard more of you in general, right? So don't be afraid to fill some of that space and just be a little bit more active and a little bit stronger with what's going on. Right? Bass, didn't hear you enough the whole time. I don't know what it sounds like on stage. That's always
When he started on concert F, and like, I was like, that's a good, and I walked back down the first tune, I was like, up, and he turned it up, and he went over again, and he turned it up again,
so you lost it on stage as well?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I walked up to him and I said, louder.
Yeah.
And like the first few times he played, I was like, sounds great. Concert F, group, sounds great. We started off Crescent City song, and I was like, he's got a boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom.
It's like it wasn't making out of the actual amp. It just disappeared off.
You killed it, man. Killed the basic. Shame on.
Not bad.
Well, at any rate, we could have used, and even just right now though, I could still hear a little bit more of you.
Okay.
In general, not this tune, obviously it wasn't such a big deal. Your kick was a little bit overpowering, right? And maybe the drums in general, obviously not the solo stuff you did, obviously you want to bring that out. But the kick in general throughout, I thought was a little strong, right? Can I hear the soloist and the, so we're right at,
So right at nine.
right at 9.
Pick up time. 1, 2, 3.
Can you use more of the hi-hat? I know the ballad you'll kind of rock back and forth. I don't know, you use heel up when you swing?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But even in the ballad, I could use more of the hi-hat. Everything else is pretty cool. There's some weird things that we all had questions about with the other tunes, but don't forget that before we hit that. But that's all for this tune, just more of the hi-hat. Again, that's gonna be the basic time stamp for everything. So saxes, again, this same kind of idea of the shape. Again, pick and knits, because this is something that I usually have to talk much more about, but it's near and dear to my heart, and I think it goes a long way. Like these background figures, again, you're coming in very, very strong, right? And we want the tone, we want the air, but can we do that same intensity with following the contour of the line with your dynamic, right? This very first fill behind the soloist here at, I wish I had bar numbers, 4 after 9, so 13, 12. Wait,
One of those.
my math is on. Like measure 12 and into 13, right? You just again start from nothing and fill into that figure. Push into the top of that figure. Let the contour of the line dictate how you might play it, right? And then you've got the same thing, so that's 12, so 14. Again, you've got this ascending figure, the descending 16ths. Really accentuate again, right? We want the dynamics to be this, right? Really accentuate the contour of that line. Let the 16th notes fall a little bit into the top, and then as that figure descends. Can we try that? Okay. So again, right at 9. I'm gonna wear you out here, am I?
No, you're fine.
And 1, 2, 3.
So you hear the difference that makes? Again, it's subtle, but it makes a really big difference in how these things are perceived out front. And it really just gives it some flow and some life. It's such a pretty tune, such a pretty arrangement. And I think that just so happens that I went on my very first cruise for spring break. So I have this kind of analogy in my head, but this is a really good example. As you follow those lines, we just get the ebb and flow of a piece like this, and it really, really brings it to life in a way that we might not otherwise. Yeah.
I got a call from her that
Oh, are we? Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Sorry
back to
about that.
Yeah, it was. I know we were a little bit behind because of the clinic.
Clinic, yeah.
So let me say this, can we just real quickly play, something from the first tune, like somewhere where we're in the middle, where you're playing what is essentially a swing groove in these two, but then you've got your snare going. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Like the shout section?
Yeah, why don't we do
I'm not sure.
Why don't we do like, after the soloist, we can do like 153? And 1, 2, 4.
That's the one right there. Is that written for you?
No,
With a snare?
that's not really.
Okay, that's really weird. So that was the question, like, no one quite knew this chart.
Yeah.
Somebody who knows of the arrangers, like, oh, well, maybe that's written in there, I don't know. But the backbeat snare with the swing going everywhere else is a little distracting, a little weird. Just take that for what it's worth, and if you really dig it, I don't know. But it was, everyone mentioned it was a little off and a little distracting. The only other criticism comment I would have is relax. Some of the upbeat figures, some of the upbeat boo-da-ba-ba-ba, that kind of thing, got rushed several times throughout the performance in both this first or last?
This first, yeah.
So this and the last one, heard several times that was the case. Also, soloists, time is the most important thing. I'm looking at you. Time. Settle into that time. No, your time wasn't bad, but you seemed more interested in lines than time. Wasn't bad. I definitely wouldn't go that far. It wasn't bad, but just you. It wasn't just you. Singly by completely. But I noticed it when you played your first solo, right? Time is everything. Don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing, right? So settle into the time. Make sure that's your number one priority. Lines will come after that. Cool. Again, all that said, pick and knits. You guys sound great. Some really, really good